Hello, everyone, and welcome into another edition of the Computer America Show. We have a wonderful, wonderful show lined up here where we have Dariush Derakhshani. He's a correspondent for the Computer America Show, and we do everything computer graphics, and we cover graphics cards, we cover programs that you can make movies with or edit pictures with, just anything CGI, graphic design, graphics cards, anything of that sort is right up Dariush's alley. So we have a lot of topics to discuss, and we're gonna have a lot of fun.
Your
so
show
stay
will go
tuned
live
for
in
more
5
Computer
seconds.
America.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting live, it's America's longest-running national radio talk show on computers, Computer America, hosted by national columnist Craig Grossman. Look for Craig's weekly column in your favorite newspaper. This show is being beamed nationwide at ComputerAmerica.com. Keep it here for technology news, computer products, guest interviews, and your phone calls. You're listening to Computer America. Computers run the world, and we run computers. Call us or send us an email to live@ComputerAmerica.com.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. And thank you for joining us on this beautiful, beautiful Wednesday afternoon. And hopefully you all are having a great day. And I'm your host, Ben Crossan, by the way, if I didn't mention that. And Craig is still out sick. He'll be back at his soonest convenience. But until then, we have a great show planned for you today, and the entire show today, we have Dariush Derakhshani, who comes on every third Wednesday of the month, and is so kind as to lend his expertise to all things graphic card or Photoshop, things like that, or movie effects and the whatnot. Everything CGI and anything that you can generate with a computer. He's done it for a living. He teaches it for a living, and he's very, very good at what he does. So we really like having him on, just so when we talk about these kinds of things, we have someone on that actually knows what they're talking about, which is great. But before we get to him proper, let us go over a few things, including ComputerAmerica.com. I want to drive that into you because that is where you will find the show notes for today. And the show notes for every show can be found at our website. And it will include links to the guest website. It will include links to any articles that we talk about. It will include links to the topics that we talk about. Just anything and everything discussed on the show can be found at ComputerAmerica.com. We do that so that if you're driving or if you're busy, if you're out jogging and you want to, maybe look something up a little bit later, we have it all in one place just so it's that easy to, find. And with that being said, also at ComputerAmerica.com, you can find links going out to all of our social media presence, including Facebook, Twitter, Google+, YouTube, what have you. And the reason I mention that is because if you go out there and you get updates from us and you follow us and you subscribe to us, then you are automatically entered for a chance to win a Keys to Go keyboard from our friends over at Logitech. It's a $70 value. And we give one of those away every single Friday when we read the winner's name live on the air. It's a lot of fun, and we really do enjoy doing that, and we really do appreciate anyone who goes out and finds us on social media. It's a great thing. So with that being said, I think we let's see, anything else. Tomorrow is our all Linux show, so tune in for that as well. And I think that is just about it. So let's just bring in our guest. And again, his name is Dariush Derakhshani. He's been a correspondent for a number of months now. I think actually coming up on 2 years. I need to check when his first appearance was. But we are ever thankful every time he comes on the show. And for those of you who don't know, just what he brings to the table, Dariush Derakhshani is a visual effects and CG expert in Los Angeles, California, and an award-winning CG generalist-lighter. He is the author of several Maya books, including the best-selling series Introducing Maya, which is obviously best-selling because, hey, that's where you start. And now, which is going into its 10th edition and translated into more than a dozen languages. And of course, he's an educational resource around the world for 8 years. And and the list goes on and on. So welcome onto the show, Mr. Dariush Derakhshani. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me. So it's good to be on with you guys again.
Yeah, no, our pleasure indeed. And of course, I was kind of going over, some of your credentials, and admittedly, just so I don't get sued by you, I ripped those directly off of your website.
Oh yeah, that
what
stuff is way old. Yeah, my website is a shambles right now. I've got to figure out
you and
a time to get some money to actually design something for us. So
you
one of
and
these days we'll update it.
right, but no, well then, if it's a bit outdated, I mean, what have you been up to lately? Is it just the teaching thing? Are you working on any projects?
I do a little bit of this and that. Over the summer, I was a visual effects supervisor, filling in for a buddy of mine for a history TV show. And that was a really great experience, really good crew and director and producers. They basically, long and short of it, doing some reenactments of some battle scenarios that happened overseas with the good men and women of our armed forces. So we were telling some of their stories. And so I was there supervising a few days of the shoot. That was a great experience. So I try to do shoot supervision as much as I can, but by and large, when the fall and the spring roll around, I'm full-time teaching here and there, and recording some videos for some 3D animation stuff.
Right on.
Stuff like that. Yeah. It's interesting. I'm busier now than I used to be, but things are better than the production world back in the day. So
well, if you don't mind, we could take a quick tangent here.
Sure.
Just because you are so well versed in this, have you ever been approached by, let's say, director or someone who kind of said, "Here's what I want to happen," and then you have to say, "Well, maybe $3 million we can make that happen," or, "Well, that's not technically possible," ever?
Well, yeah, absolutely. That it's kind of my job to figure out what the director wants and what we can do in that time, and that's I draw on some of my experience and call up some of my colleagues and get their opinions as well as to directors are looking for this, and is this possible? What do we have to do? And really set a creative, artistic, and really economical and feasible parameters to get those things done. One great story I have from a director many years ago, when I was just into the first couple of years of my career, wanted to basically shoot a sequel to a movie he had done with an actor he wasn't very fond of anymore at that time.
Yeah.
And he wanted to shoot with a stand-in and wondered what it would take to do a digital head of the original actor to replace it on the stand-in for the sequel. And this was in I want to say 98 or 99. So it was quite a while ago. And I just told him, we need dozens and dozens of people, lots of computers, and like millions of dollars to even scratch the surface. Because way back then, the human things weren't looking very human like they are now with things like Benjamin Button and some other films like Fast and the Furious. The last ones where they unfortunately had to replace Paul Walker's face and head in some shots. So we've come a long way in a short time, but that sticks out in my memory. Like, what exactly, what planet do you exactly think we live on? But nowadays it's a lot more routine. You can do that much more easily and much more affordably.
Yeah, no, it really makes you think, because in '98 you balked. You said, "Wow, what? No, never." And, well, not never, but not now. And then of
Exactly.
course now Paul Walker, like you said, Fast and Furious, of course, comes to mind, where they took his brother and essentially CGI'd his face onto his brother's body. And hey, and just like you said, it's routine. It's completely possible at this point. So makes you wonder. And I'm sure you're not well, actually, I don't know. Are you a fan of BoJack Horseman, the TV show?
My wife is trying to get me to start watching that show with her, but not just yet. Not just yet. I haven't broken and started watching it yet.
Dark comedy, but there's of course a scene there where before he starts shooting a movie, they take 3D scans of him completely all the way around. And he runs off, does his thing, but no real spoilers here. But yeah, they essentially use his CGI printout as an actor and finish the movie without him. And it makes you think, is that a it's like, it's in a cartoon and a comedy, but is that a possibility in the near future?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I think a lot of actors nowadays are savvy enough to speak with their agents about clauses like that in their contracts to make sure that their likenesses aren't used beyond the scope of whatever they're being scanned for. Because I remember way back, even in the earlier days of the 2000s, really, a lot of actors were being scanned for body doubles and digital stunt work and things like that. And now it's a lot more routine, where they'll go in and they'll scan, and there's actually a facility housed by USC's Entertainment for Creative Technology. It's called a light sphere. And basically, you have somebody sit in the chair in the middle of this like metal dome that is surrounds you with all these cameras, these Canon cameras, and all these different LED lights. And that basically, when it goes off, it's a very complicated software. Gets a geometric scan of your face at the same time as getting a color scan of your face. To the point where you can actually get geometry detail in the pores of the skin, which is really, really remarkable. It's an amazing scanner, and they did that with Gravity, with Sandra Bullock. They helped create a digital head for her for some of those shots with that light sphere scan.
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about getting down to the pore level, it's either a sign of bad skin or a sign of that they're really getting really fine detail.
Or maybe a little bit of both. Absolutely.
Maybe both, but no, like you need that level of detail because Craig's favorite example is always the Final Fantasy movie that came out in the early 2000s, and it's like, you look at it now, and it did not cross that uncanny valley. It did not cross that point where you said, "Oh no, that's human." It's I think it's the imperfections that kind of make everyone kind of look like a person. It's not so much that like, oh, they have two eyes and a mouth. No, it's you have to get the pores, you have to get the the eyes offset, you have to get the the blemishes. Like everything has to come together to make it look like a person. And one way to kind of bring this around to our first subject that I want to bring up is, of course, virtual reality. And we talked a bit about it last month when you were on the show. But when you start creating these virtual reality experiences, there was already that movie. I do not recall it went out in theaters, but it essentially gave the audience member a first-person perspective, and it was weird, like in a movie theater setting. And I think more people gave it more credit because it was different more than it was successful at what it tried to do. And forgive me for not remembering the movie, but like essentially you play.
Was that Hardcore Henry?
I think so. Yeah.
It was like you were watching this sort of video game, shoot 'em up.
Right. Yeah.
It came out about earlier this year, I think it was.
Yeah, and again, it's all movie experience from first person, but not every virtual reality experience that we're going to be kind of using VR for is going to be shot for shot like a movie. Some of it is going to have to be recreated, and if some of it's recreated, then maybe some of it is going to be virtual people. And if you can start getting virtual reality people to start looking like and talking like and acting like real people, then VR is going to of course be that much better for it.
Absolutely. And there's a bunch of content on YouTube, obviously 360 Google VR films. There's a really good narrative story. A director by the name of Patrick Osborne really created this story called Pearl, about a girl, and you put your goggles on, and essentially it takes you through time. It's a very sentimental sort of family story that takes place in this car over the course of many years. It's pretty interesting because those are all stylized animation. They're not trying to be real, and I think this is it goes back to a lot of that uncanny valley that we've talked about before. I think the more you stylize and the more quote unquote cartoon that you keep your designs, the more forgiving people are going to be. But at some point, we're going to end up crossing that uncanny valley, and I think there's a lot of interest from governments and from science and all sorts of entertainment to replicate real people. But I think it also opens up a really big ethical debate that I don't know if we are having as a society yet, when you could really fake the news with fantastic footage of things happening that no one is going to be able to discern is real or not, whether it's in VR or not. But sort of veering off the VR topic for a second there.
Well,
but
not even. I mean, it's definitely going to make a difference because you mentioned that the more stylized you do, the more cartoonish. When I saw like one of the first demonstrations I saw of VR was a very simple low polygon count game where essentially you're riding a roller coaster in VR, and it was kind of like someone blew up the blew up a roller coaster from like Roller Coaster Tycoon 3. Like it, was not realistic in any sense, but put on a virtual reality headset and you put someone in a chair, and like if you saw them, they were kind of leaning side to side, going back and forward. Like it doesn't
Sure.
have to be extremely real for people to really, for it to really have a good impact in virtual reality.
Yeah, I agree. I think it has a lot to do with the way your head positions and what you're reading with movement. A while back at SIGGRAPH in Irvine this past year, I did a small Mount Everest demo with I think it was a Gear VR at the NVIDIA booth. And I knew 100%. I think I mentioned this in an earlier show. I knew 100% that it was not real. The graphics were, they were good looking, they were nice looking, but they certainly weren't real. But because I was looking around and seeing an environment, because I could look down and there seemed to be this ice crack or crevice right beneath my feet, it honestly, it made my body fearful that I was actually on the edge of this ice cliff. But I think it has more to do with the fact that I moved my head and my environment moved accordingly, which I guess my brain interpreted as more as being real than the look of the environment. So that sort of pivoting motion, I guess, really made my body think I was actually there, more than just the look of the graphics. So
Right.
I think there's some studies that we have to do really and figure out biologically what's going on and what's the marker of real. Is it that it looks real, or does it feel real? And we got to quantify what feel is to get better VR and be more efficient about what we're producing, because we're this is the Wild West. We're just at the opening of the gates, and how well we create content and how good that content is really going to drive where VR goes to from here.
Yeah, I mean, I just saw a demonstration. I wish I had kept the article, but it was, of course, the Japanese have very different priorities from the West when it comes to VR. But one of their projects, or at least one project that was showed off to a large audience at a VR summit, was a schoolgirl, kind of a simulation where she you could kind of see her development from beginning to what is now, and it's an ongoing kind of thing. But essentially they're trying to make the realist looking person, again, that just happens to take the form of schoolgirl, but the realist looking person. And I saw a video, and again, I wish I kept it, but it was a video of just her just standing there kind of looking around, and then she like looks at the camera, smiles, and like waves. And it was freaky that like it's a program. Like this was like you can go back and you can look at the skeleton, you can look at the layers, you can look at the textures that they put on. You can go all the way down to like the bare bones of what the animation is. But when you see it all come together, like that honestly is like, well, that's the future. We're gonna have people, and then we're gonna and then Siri's gonna get a body in virtual reality. Like that's the future.
Yeah, totally. Friend of mine, one of my colleagues actually, was saying she was playing ping pong virtually with the Gear VR with a friend of hers in San Francisco. and they felt like they were right there talking to each other. Obviously, it was all avatars, but they really got the sense that they were in the same room because they were both in that same digital location, I guess you can call it.
Yeah, and that's one thing that we saw when Facebook, because of course Facebook purchasing the Oculus Rift, and
Right.
for a couple $1 billion, like they had their VR summit kind of deal, and they really showed where they see virtual reality going, and they see it as a social experience, like kind of like how Facebook games were, always, play with your friends, invite your friends, get your friends here. VR for Facebook is going to be, well, join a chat room, join a place to sit down, talk, and kind of hang out together. But you're going to do it in virtual reality, and you're going to have virtual avatars that, maybe they do some kind of weird picture scanning thing that I know Facebook can do, and they may
Right.
plaster their face onto the avatar, but in general, it's going to be a pretty simplistic avatar chat room kind of deal. But from everything that I've seen, just having a visual representation, like I remember seeing where someone set up a movie theater, and there were seats going back, a dozen rows, but of course you have the best seat in the house, and then all your friends have avatars in kind of seats next to you, and it's like you're sitting down watching a movie with your friends, but you can all talk to each other. And people really seem to enjoy that. You still got all the chemical endorphins from hanging out with your friends that you wouldn't in real.
Yeah, ain't that crazy? Yeah, it's weird because the internet, you look at its evolution over time, and you can say that it's brought people together, but physically it's kept people apart.
Right.
People are less prone to getting up and going to see somebody. They'd rather just send an IM or a text or an email, as opposed to just kind of walking down the street or walking to their office or whatever. It's but that connection, that communication, I guess is what makes us feel connected, as opposed to the physicality. I think the Facebook VR, I'm not sure. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that people are throwing at the wall to see what it sticks for VR, as they should, because it's still a very nascent sort of industry. But I think in the end, it's going to have a lot of applications with virtual being, meaning you could be in one place while doing something in another place, where you could have, we have call centers now all over the world for support for software and hardware and things like that. But now this could take that to the nth level, where people in a completely different region could be running running your desktop, or running an operation, or running some sort of process remotely, because the remarkable thing that I found about VR wasn't just the environment and being able to look around and, hey, yeah, cool, it looks cool and these things are there, but the real feeling of depth perception is what really struck me. Knowing, if I have controllers on my hands, or if I'm wearing gloves or whatever it may be in the future, that if I move my hand away from me, 2 feet away from me, that whatever I'm seeing looks to be really 2 feet in front of me. And that will give a lot of, let's say medical practitioners, the ability to do stuff virtually, have a set of robotic arms running a very intricate surgery. So instead of just using joysticks to move stuff, now you've got that feeling of depth perception. I think that's one great avenue that that VR will go. The social thing, I think, will be helpful to kind of feel like you're sitting next to somebody with the Gear VR, but I'm not entirely sure if it's going to be that much better or that much more compelling than sitting on Skype or Google Hangouts and seeing each other through a camera. So I'm not entirely sure that's going to be worth the bother for most people. But it does open up the thought of being remote and doing something virtually somewhere else.
Well, we've already had the conversation. I'm not sure if it was with you or with another correspondent, but the idea has already been proposed that, you mentioned a call center. Think of it like a giant facility, like a giant warehouse where you keep all the best surgeons and all the best doctors in the world. And instead of having, oh, well, unfortunately, we have to reschedule your surgery because the best doctor in the world that you paid for, he is currently in Switzerland and you're in, California or whatever. Instead, you have all the best surgeons in one place. And, just like telecommuting or, what have you, you can just go into a facility and then and then they do, 5, 6, 7 surgeries a day, all from the same location, and then they all drive back home and then they go into the office and do surgeries around the world in this giant call center like thing where it's just for surgeries instead of tech support.
Yeah, I agree, and I'd say it's got great implications for sports, being able to like table tennis with somebody else, or even practicing martial arts where you're doing moves against each other, but as avatars. Obviously, you're going to miss the feeling of contact, but I think there's a lot. I mean, I saw on TV many months ago a story about how some football teams are using VR to help train quarterbacks and other people on other players on the line, different types of plays and where they can expect people to go. So instead of just watching film, they're able to experience it more fully. And I really think it comes down to just your perception of depth and space, and that really adds a whole new sense to what you're doing and what you're experiencing. So I think that's the biggest plus we have with VR, and I think it's going to be several years of this sort of Wild West shakeout until we start settling in on some solid industrial applications and standards, and probably within the next 8 years or so, we'll start seeing more of a, I guess, a saturation of different things that we can do. And I think one of the big things, which is great for you and I and anybody who loves games, is games. Being able to go into a game and play a game totally immersively. I know my son is dying to get his hands on a Gear VR set, and keeps talking about this Christmas coming up.
No, well, and and that's kind of one thing that I wanted to bring up was, right now the cost of entry for VR, either kind of just something that you have lying around, like a Samsung phone. Not a note though. Not a note. Do not put a note.
Yeah, no. Do not take a note on an airplane.
Or, well, technically you can't even anymore. It's they're like, oh, you'll get arrested if you do that. It's like, oh, thanks.
All right, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll just leave it here on the counter, and yeah. But no, with the Samsung Gear VR, where you slap in your phone, and then of course, Google just announced their Google Daydream View, which was a competitor, or which is going to be a competitor, where it's like all soft fabric and that kind of thing, and you slap in the Google Pixel phone, which is going to be coming out soon. But like the reason I bring up all these different ways is that either you go the phone route or Google Cardboard, which again, for $10 it's your best bet. And then you have things like the HTC Vive, which is the only one that I've tried, but I really did enjoy it. And then there is the Oculus Rift from Facebook, and of course, the latter of those two cost a $700 to $1,000 computer minimum, and probably you're going to want to go above that, plus a $600, $700, $800 headset on top of that. So
right.
The entry is still pretty high, for this whole VR thing. So I think when there's a better market for it, you're going to see more people try to develop for it, because right now it's just like YouTube videos is like the big thing, and then Steam games is like the second.
Right.
Other than that, VR really isn't doing anything or much of anything.
Yeah, I agree, and I think the one to beat right now is the Vive, the HTC Vive. I haven't really had a lot of time with all the different headsets, but so far I've been really very impressed with the Vive, and that's a pretty expensive sort of thing to get into, and for really great experience, you're gonna want a machine with a killer video card, like the new ones that are coming out. Now that brings me to something we talked about a little bit before, is the entry level stuff, and we were kind of talking about Christmas is coming up and what people might be looking at. So NVIDIA has the 1050 coming out soon, which is about $100 video card that takes aim at AMD's lower end market right now.
Yeah. Dariush, before we get into that, the music. There we go. Wow, what great timing. But the music means we got to take a break, and we'll come back and we'll get into holiday gift giving, because I know a lot of people out there, new computer systems are on their list, and maybe you are thinking about purchasing one. And one of the best places for companies to save money is by giving you a subpar graphics card. So we're going to talk about some of the pitfalls when we come back with more Dariush Derakhshani, and stay tuned as we talk about a whole lot more.
Looking for a best friend? Brother Wolf Animal Rescue has your best friend waiting just for you. The mission of Brother Wolf Animal Rescue is to help build a sustainable, no-kill community where no dogs or cats are ever killed for population control, where true euthanasia is reserved only for animals who are irremediably suffering, or for animals who are truly a threat to society and with no hope of rehabilitation. Brother Wolf staff and volunteers go door to door, neighborhood by neighborhood, to educate citizens about local resources available for at-risk pets and to help their families connect with those resources. Brother Wolf's community-based approach to no-kill helps keep family pets healthy, happy, and in their homes and out of the local shelter system in the first place. For more information or to make a tax-deductible donation to this wonderful 501c3 organization, visit their website at www.bwar.org. Help to realize Brother Wolf's vision when no animal is euthanized for lack of a home.
Who's a good boy?
Hi, this is Craig Crossman, host of the Computer America Show. You have important meetings to schedule. Your company's getting ready for its IPO, and you're in charge of the PTA fundraiser this month. So how do you coordinate everyone to be available at the same time? Are you still using emails, phone calls, even text messages to schedule meetings with a group of people? How's that working out for you? Not so great, huh? It's a fact that every day, millions of people suffer from scheduling headaches. Well, with Doodle, scheduling meetings with a group of people is quick and easy. With Doodle, you can easily propose available times to each member. Each one checks off the times that they're available, and then you simply pick the time that works best for the group, all in an easy-to-read display that integrates with your existing calendar. Nothing could be more simple. Give Doodle a try for free, and like millions of Doodle users, you'll truly see how easy it is to find the perfect date and time for all your meetings. That's www.doodle.com.
No, you don't place bets with a Facebookie. Marty Winston with a News Tips Bulletin Review for Computer America. This time, the new tone model LA600WH MP3 customizable door chime mechanism. Yeah, it is a doorbell. It hangs on a wall, looks like a door chime housing, works with wired or wireless front and rear doorbell buttons. But the new Tone MP3 doorbell offers some wonderful flexibility. It comes with 8 MP3 files that sound like authentic chimes, including their vibrato and decay. You choose one for the front door and one for the back door, or you make a USB connection to substitute your own MP3 files. Fight songs, rock songs, up to you. Bottom line, a new Tone MP3 customizable door chime lets you change the sound of either door to a buzz, a ding, or a chime, and more. Marty Winston, News Tips Bulletin for Computer America.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show. It is 33 minutes past the hour as we continue on here. Mr. Dariush Derakhshani joins us for the whole show. And yeah, we are here talking about, graphics card, or we are about to start talking about graphics cards and holiday gift giving, and what to really keep an eye out for, because this isn't just like parents who don't know what their kids want or anything like that. I mean, I had a number of friends who purchased new computers for the new World of Warcraft expansion, but they all sent me links to 24 different computers, all asking me, is this one good, is this one good? And it was kind of interesting because one friend is shopping extremely low budget, like he didn't have much money to spend on his computer, so he's like, is this $250 computer good, or is this $180 computer good? And then I had another one who's like, all right, my budget is $1,200. What can you get me? And it was interesting just to see how different computers come out of the factory with so many different, kind of configurations, especially refurbished ones. So, Dariush, because I think I think you've pawed about every graphics card that's probably on the market for consumers, and some that's not even for consumers. Um, what would you say are some of the things to kind of keep an eye out for? Because I had a pretty hard time, and I do this for a living. I can't imagine how the average person is going to go out and find the difference in all these computers.
Right. Yeah. No. No. This is a great question. And like you said, with the holiday season coming up, you're going to start eyeing what sorts of things you want to buy for yourself or for other people. Well, a lot of PCs, as you mentioned, they save a lot of cost by having integrated graphics. And integrated graphics with the basically puts the graphics processor in with the CPU. So the GPU is rolled in with the CPU, and that's fine for most stuff. But when you start getting into gaming, and when you want a little bit more heft in your machine, you're quickly going to realize that integrated graphics are very subpar, especially for things like games. If you like playing your games, you're going to want at least a discrete graphics card. I'd be interested to kind of test and see integrated graphics, some of the higher end Intel integrated graphics versus some of the lower end discrete graphics cards. I suspect most things they'll be about on par. Maybe the graphics card will be better a little bit here and there. And I'm talking like the cheaper $100 graphics cards. But anything above that, when you get into like the 1070, 1080, 1090, things like that, will give you far, far better bang for your buck. And you're spending maybe a couple of $100 more. If you go way up top to the top of the line, you're going to be $900 to $1,000 more. But in the end, it's worth it, because one of the things that you can carry over if you upgrade your PC is the video card. Of course, you can always upgrade the video card as well.
Right.
But if you're unsure where you want to be, you can start with a computer that's got integrated graphics, as long as your case and your power supply are large and strong enough to handle a video card that you put back into it later on. You can always upgrade that way if you're a little budget conscious at this point.
Yeah, and of course that's some and this I think is the can of worms that a lot of people kind of open when they look for a new computer, especially when they buy, kind of build their own computer. Is that you mentioned, well, you can always start with integrated graphics, and you find if they're insufficient, you can always upgrade. But then you have to keep an eye out for the case and make sure the case has 1 or 2 slots for graphics cards, and then you have to worry about the power supply. Is it just enough for what's in there, or is there some headroom? And then you have to talk about what cables are included. Do I need to go buy more cables? And then you talk about the motherboard. Does the motherboard support any kind of graphics cards? And like really, a computer really ties itself in with all of its bits and pieces, and it gets confusing. So the point that I want to make with that is, where does Dariush start when he looks for a new computer? Where would someone like Dariush go if he wants to purchase a new computer off the shelf, like not build one, because I don't want to open up all that conversation.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a great conversation for another show.
Right.
And honestly, I don't buy computers off the shelf, but if I were, I would be looking for probably a processor that is 2 or 3 tiers down from the top of the line.
Mhm.
I find that the second or third tier down is generally the best bang for the buck. The top of the tier obviously is a premium, so they're going to be charging a lot more for machines built with that fastest processor. But then you'd have still a decent amount of headroom if you get 2 or 3 tiers down from there, and with a pretty good price. I would start there. I would have at least 8 gigs of RAM in the machine at least. I recommend 16 if you can. But 8 gigs, you want an SSD, you want a computer that has an SSD for the boot drive, but also has at least 2 terabytes of regular mechanical drive storage. That's the kind of thing you're going to look for. And for me, if I'm buying off the shelf, I look for a company that has reliability and a really good track record for customer support. Because I imagine people that want to buy a PC off the shelf, they just want to plug it in and they want it to work, and they just want to be able to call somebody, have them remote desktop in and fix whatever little issues that come up. So that would be sort of my thought for buying a PC like that. Graphics card wise, as I mentioned, if you're really budget conscious, you could always upgrade later down the line if you're comfortable opening up your PC and putting a graphics card in there and then telling the motherboard through the BIOS to go through the graphics card and not your integrated, which is, you know, it's simpler than it sounds. If you're not comfortable with that, I would say just go ahead and bite the bullet, spend the extra couple of $100 and get a machine that has a dedicated graphics card and not just integrated. And you know, the bottom of the line, the brand new is the GeForce GTX 1050. That's going to be fairly cheap, but for a little bit of headroom, for a little bit of future proofing, you're going to want to be probably at the 1070 level for the GeForce, which equivalent, you know, that puts us about the AMD Radeon maybe R7 series. So, and AMD has a great history of having very good price to performance, and lately has really kicked it up a notch with some very powerful graphics processors in their Radeon cards. GeForce has always been very stable, so I don't think you can go wrong with either or. And personally, I've had my time on both AMD and NVIDIA branded cards and hardware. I'm very happy with both of them. My friends tend to gravitate towards the GeForce, towards the NVIDIA based cards. Their driver base tends to be a little bit more stable and updated a little more often. So that's probably what you're looking at is GeForce maybe 1070 with a good amount of RAM and good storage with an SSD. SSD is key. That's the biggest boost that you can have in a system's speed, is to make sure that Windows is booting from a solid state drive and not a mechanical hard drive.
Yeah, right. And you know, very, very good advice. I want to get into that for a second because we talked about SSDs a little while ago, and SSDs, like, they are not all created the same, because I have one, you know, I've heard telltale that you know, my computer boots up in less than 10 seconds, and it's like, wow, that's amazing, it's great, I'm gonna get one. And I went out and I got you know, a pretty price effective one, but mine boots up in about 30 to 45 seconds. It's like, well, you know, I'm not going to die of old age, but it's a long shot from that 10 seconds. So
Sure.
what are some and you know, what are some key differences between solid state drive to solid state drive? Like, what should you like, because capacity is not all.
Yeah, capacity is definitely not all. And with SSDs, as with memory, with RAM, in my opinion, it's really about the manufacturer. It's about the brand and who brings it to you. I have a number of SSDs over the last several years that I've bought, that I've installed here and there, and now I've sort of upgraded my son's machine, my wife's machine, my own machines. So I had a few extra SSDs, so I threw them all into one server machine. So I get to see them all on one system, and I tend to have a little bit more trouble with some of the more off-brand ones. I'm a big fan of the Samsung brand. Samsung SSDs are really good. The fastest ones will get you a little bit more time. Like there's a few other brands. SanDisk, for example, they make memory cards. So they also make SSD cards. I don't have one myself, but I haven't read the best reviews. OCZ is a pretty good brand for SSDs, as is Intel. Believe it or not, Intel has got a couple of good. They're not performance oriented, but they are stable workhorses that that offer really good performance. But I've never had a trouble, not even a minute of trouble with my Intel or my Samsung SSDs.
Very interesting, because SSDs, like, I think at this point, between the RAM and between SSDs and between hard drives, like, there's a giant supply chain that spans the entire globe, and it starts in China, Taiwan, Japan, Korea. Like, it starts there, and then it works its way through the supply chain till we get to companies such as Samsung and Intel and all those that we just named. But essentially, all the memory kind of comes from the same place. But some of the things that are different is the individual companies' controllers, like software controllers.
Absolutely.
for the
Yeah,
memory.
absolutely. Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah, the interface between the memory that's on the SSD and your computer is really key. And there's a couple of different form factors as well. Everybody's pretty much standardized on the 6 gigabyte per second SATA 3 interface, and that's great. But there's M.2 interface as well, which is this tiny little card that traditionally laptops would sport these ports where you can pop in an M.2 SSD. Those are wicked fast. They are really, 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 really fast because of the transfer speed, because of the controller, and because of the bus between the basically the traffic. It's a very wide highway between the memory that's on your SSD and what your computer gets. So your boot times, as you were mentioning, they have a lot to do with the manufacturer and the model of SSD that you buy, but also the controller and the bandwidth between them. So if you had a motherboard that had an M.2 slot, or if you were to get a PCI card with M.2 slots on it, you would get immediate boost in load times for sure, presuming that your BIOS handles being able to boot Windows through one of those devices.
Right.
But you're getting 4 or 5-fold transfer speed differences in those form factors, which is pretty handy when you look at SATA 3, which is pretty fast to begin with, but M.2, if it's got a direct bus into your motherboard, it's wicked fast.
Yeah, we just did a story. Let's see, I actually found it. This was back in August, all the way back, August 10th, 2016. All the way back then, Samsung, actually, you mentioned Samsung, so this popped into my mind, but they just released their M.2 SSD, 32 terabytes. So, it was one of the biggest SSDs I'd ever heard of. And of course, there's the standard 2.5 or 3.5 inch slot that it can fit in. You can get one or the other. And of course, you have to make note, like, if you're considering about upgrading your hard drive, make sure you know what size to get, because that's one of the worst things, is to make a hard drive external just because it won't fit in your case.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you cut a lot of bandwidth USB 3 is pretty fast, but is nowhere near as fast as if you can go directly through the motherboard. Without a doubt.
Definitely. And the last thing I want to touch on with the SSDs is, of course, read-write speeds. And that's extremely important for the speed that we were just talking about. And it's I think really the read-write speed, apart from the manufacturer, is why you can go on Newegg, Best Buy, Tiger Direct, whatever. You can go on any of those sites and you can see a 4 terabyte solid state drive, and you see one for $140, and then you see one for $800. Like, even though they may be the same capacity, the read-write speeds are so different from one another. And it like the $800 SSD might be a ripoff, but more often than not, it just means it's just a faster card than the much cheaper one.
Yeah, right, exactly. And it goes back to that CPU advice that I had earlier. The top of the line SSD speeds are going to command a premium in price. So you want to take a look. You don't want to just close your eyes and just pick the absolute fastest one, because price to performance ratio is at a bit of a disadvantage when you're at the top of the chain.
Right.
You go 1 or 2 slots down from there is where you'll find a good price, but still a very good performance as well. And that's one of the reasons why I really enjoy the Samsung, the 850 Pro line is super duper fast, and they've got a couple of notches that go below there that have slightly slower read and write speeds. The 850 that I mentioned, they're at about 500 megabytes per second, and this is a SATA. This is not even M.2, so that's pretty good. And if you go down maybe to 400, 450 megabytes per second reads, maybe around 400 in writes, you could save a good amount of cash and not really notice that much of a difference in the end result. You may be going from a 14-second Windows boot time to maybe a 12-second boot time, and is that worth $100, $150 to you? But it's a lot better than a 90-second boot time off of a mechanical hard drive.
Definitely. And now getting back to graphics cards, I have a question for you, because NVIDIA recently came out like their newest line. They call it the NVIDIA 10 line. Before it was like the 9.
The 9 and the 8 before that. Yep.
Right. Well, this is the 10 one, and with the 10 they switched over to something called the Pascal architecture, which came with it a slew of more efficient, faster, more on less, all that good stuff. But my question is, with these, with this new architecture, the 980s, like 6 months ago, the 980 Ti or the Titan X, what have you, those were the top of the line. Like, those were the best on the market. But now that Pascal came out, the 10 line is better. Is it worth going back to the 980, or should you stick with the Pascal because it's a different architecture altogether?
Well, the architecture is just like CPUs. They end up being more efficient and using less power with each iteration. They get more performance. I think the question here is probably, do you go with a top of the line 900 card like a 980, or do you go with a mid-range 10 line like the 1070?
Right.
Price to performance, that's a good question. If you want top of the line, then you're going to go with the 10 line. You've got the most headroom, the most future proofing there. But if you want to be a little bit more strategic with your budget, you might want to consider a higher end 900 card. And I've seen a little bit of anecdotal information regarding the new Titan X versus the old Titan X. The 10 series versus the 9 series Titan X. While the 10 series Titan X is more efficient, uses less power, it doesn't blow the old Titan X out of the water in some performance metrics. So, and if you can maybe find yourself a 900 series Titan X at a cheaper cost than the 10, great. But they're pricing pretty aggressively, the 10 series. So that's really up to you and what you want to spend. I think if you go with a higher end 900 line, you still have a pretty good amount of headroom as far as future proofing goes. Not as much as if you go with the 10 line, but I don't think you're going to end up being, out of luck and not being able to do stuff with that 900 line
In a matter of
anytime soon. Yeah, exactly. You probably want to stay away from the 800s and 700s,
Right.
but going one iteration back, I don't think that's gonna cost you too much future proofing, to be honest.
And the only reason I ask that is because with the 10 line compared to from 9 to 10, as compared from 7, 8 to 9, to the 9, is that before they were all on the previous architecture, which I should totally remember what it was called. But anyways, you got new, you have more efficiency, all that kind of good stuff. But no, the 10 line, and I have seen some of the benchmarks that you're talking about. There are performance increases, but there's also another $200 on top of the new Titan X as opposed to the old one. And the old Titan X is comparable to the 1080 Ti, so all that good stuff. One phrase that I think a lot of people are going to start seeing on computers, at least this holiday season, and if not this year, then definitely next year, is VR ready. And that's the thing, because virtual reality, we talked about it in the first part of the show. It's definitely going to be a draw. Like I guess the marketing side of computer, of the computer world, sees the next reason that people are going to upgrade is going to be for VR compatibility. So how important is VR compatibility when thinking about maybe computers this year or maybe even next year?
I think it'll be more compelling to think about it in the next year or the year after that, when there's a lot more content, there's more standardization, and there's a much lower price point. To get into the HTC Vive is going to cost you about $800 just for the Vive equipment, but you're going to want at least a 1070 or a 1080 and above to really get great performance. An interesting story: one of the computer labs in which I teach has a VR setup with the Vive, and we have in that lab some pretty high-end Macs from last year. None of them could do anything. So we had to get a Windows 10 machine, and in that is a 900 series Titan X card, and it does really well. So the question you really have to ask is, what am I getting this PC for? And if I want to be in VR, at the forefront of VR, then yeah, you want to get something that's got great memory and really good graphics processing, to be able to handle what's going on in VR right now. But I think for the general public, I don't think it is going to be much of a consideration until probably next holiday season.
Makes sense. And of course, these are things that you're going to be seeing at at Best Buy, what have you, off the shelf. You mentioned there, it's like I ran into this all the time when I was talking to my friends. It was like, oh, it's not too hard to switch from one graphics card to the other. Oh, it's not too hard to buy this computer, order some RAM off of here for pretty cheap, and upgrade this computer, just open it up, put in the RAM. And like the minute I said you have to do something, like their eyes glazed over, and they're just like, Ben, I don't want to work on my computer, I want to use my computer.
Right, absolutely.
Like asking people to do what we consider to be pretty rudimentary can be a huge turnoff. So it's good to know what you're spending your money on and why certain computers are going to cost more, because like during the show I just looked it up, and there are computers from $300, $500, all the way up to $2,000 sitting on the shelf. So it's good to know what to look for and what they have and why they cost that much.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you should check the websites if you're looking for a Vive, for example, and see what kind of equipment that you need for your existing PC, or what to buy in a new PC. But I would say, and I hate to say this because Macintoshes are great computers, but that is not the platform for you. If you're going to be in VR, you're going to be on a Windows PC or maybe even a Linux PC, but you're definitely going to be in the PC realm. But as I said, I think, not this holiday season, but next, it's probably the one that's going to be a little bit more captivating for the general user.
Definitely. And, I guess it's like 3 months from now, so it's not too early to hype it, but we're going out to CES this year, and I'm excited to see how big of a role, VR is going to play out there, because last year at CES, it was all the Internet of Things kind of took everything over. And I'm kind of betting that this year is either going to be more Internet of Things, or it's going to be VR. It's going to be on everyone's mind. So, yeah,
totally agree.
Yeah, so we're going to see what's out there. So, but in the meantime, Dariush, what has you busy right now? Anything that you want people to check out? Your website, your book, anything?
I'm speaking with a couple of different outlets on making videos of my Maya books. So I'll have more information about where will these videos be available probably the next time we speak. But yeah, I've got a couple of things cooking right now I can't really get into because I don't have the details yet. But definitely next time I think I'll have some more details.
Looking forward to it. And just for everyone's peace of mind, I believe next month, short of a schedule change, you will not be here, but we'll definitely have you on sometime in December before the year is out, just to hey, go over some more topics.
Yeah, no, that sounds great.
All right, perfect. And yeah, Darius, thank you for coming on. Again, look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. And yeah, and everyone else out there, thank you for tuning into the Computer America Show. Hopefully you learned something. This was a very informative show, and hopefully also you were entertained, because I thought this was fun. So yeah, and again, tomorrow is our all Linux program where we talk everything Linux with our correspondent Marcel Gagne, and we cover a lot of different topics. So tune in for that and a whole bunch more here on Computer America. Have a good one, everyone. Bye-bye. And everyone out there watching on the video portion, thank you for tuning in. It was it was a really great show, and I want to thank Dariush Derakhshani for tuning in and providing all that expertise. It was wonderful. So everyone out there, have a great afternoon, and we will see you here bright and early tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern. See you then. Bye-bye.